I was in an abusive relationship for 6 months. Now my life is better than I could ever have imagined. Never thought I'd be on here posting, but here's my story. I'm a white 36-year-old male in the US. 2 years ago when I was 34, I hit a rough patch in life where I was starting to have some health signs from years of high-functioning alcoholism and got into $40,000 of debt from gambling on high-risk stocks with borrowed money. Luckily, I have a remote job that pays $100,000, so I still had a way to survive and turn it around. I started going to AA meetings, working out at the gym, and came up with a plan to build up my 401k so that I could pay off my debt. It was time of personal improvement and really addressing what had led to my alcoholism and decisions to take reckless financial risk instead of advancing my career more. I actually ended up getting into great shape and my outlook on life became healthier. About 5 months into my sobriety, I started dating a Korean-American woman who was 33. She was really beautiful, smart, educated, and came from a somewhat wealthy family where all of the kids had gone to top colleges. She was leaving a $200,000 plus salary job to start her own startup company. When we met, it was awesome. We went on some cool trips together and had a really great chemistry and intellectual connection. A lot of women are judgmental that I live in a small studio apartment and that I'm not in a higher achieving career, but this woman fully embraced me. Early on we had some really cool experiences together. But there were some early red flags. She moved into my small studio apartment right away and never wanted to be apart. Suddenly we were locked at the hip and had almost no lives of our own. Then she started to show signs of extreme jealousy toward other women. Very early on, before we were even official, I told her that I had been dealing with feelings of sadness about my ex-girlfriend from years ago. Also, before we were official, I hung out one night with a female neighbor of mine who I had once made out with drunkenly years prior but had just become friends with. During that hangout, all I talked about to the female neighbor was how much I really liked my soon-to-be new girlfriend. When my new girlfriend found out about these things, she became very hostile, and they became never-ending topics of her jealousy. My best friends do an annual camping trip. Within 2 months of dating, I wanted to bring my new girlfriend to this trip. After I'd invited her, I found out that a girl I had hooked up with years prior, who never went on this annual trip, was going. I told my new girlfriend about this and asked her over and over again if she wanted us to cancel attending, but she assured me that she wanted to go and it wouldn't be a problem. At the trip, the girl walked up and gave me a basic hug, and also interacted with me very briefly, like 20 seconds of interaction. Around the campfire with 15 other people present, I thought this stuff wasn't a big deal. Well, for the next year this became a topic of my new girlfriend's obsession. She said that by interacting with the other girl showed me special attention and that I disrespected my new girlfriend by not acknowledging her feelings. For the next several weeks, all I heard were theories from my new girlfriend about why I probably have feelings for the other woman from my past. The constant negativity in my studio apartment stressed me out so much that I ended up drinking and breaking my nearly 8 months of sobriety from alcohol. Then things kept getting worse. My new girlfriend and I had a strong intellectual connection and we really opened up to each other about our pasts and had a lot of deep, meaningful conversations. She took on a new $200,000 plus year job, was finishing her master's and also working on her startup company, all in my studio apartment. Admittedly, I sort of used her as a therapist and stayed up late talking every night for a couple of weeks or so. To be fair, I'm sure she was exhausted and drained. One night she snapped on me and pinched me so hard that it left a mark on my arm and hurt. A year later she claimed that early in the relationship I kept her up for 4 weeks in a row using her as a therapist and that I manipulated her, telling her that if she didn't listen to me then she doesn't love me. I think she is exaggerating some of this as she turned out to be very manipulative. 2 days after the pinching incident, I yelled at her and told her to never physically abuse me again. Months 2 to 6 of our relationship were really tough and she proceeds to be more physically abusive. She would constantly have jealous outbursts about other women that were completely irrational. She constantly accused me of checking out other women when I really wasn't. We would be at the gym and she would come up to me and say she isn't going to stand there while I smile at other women, then storm out of the gym. I wasn't smiling at any women. She claimed that all of the women who worked at the front desk at the gym were sluts who wanted me. She didn't like when I went on solo walks in my neighborhood because a lot of women in their 20s live in my neighborhood and she thought that I would be checking them out. I once had to get up at a restaurant to go talk to the waitress about the bill and my ex-girlfriend flipped out and said I was in love with the waitress. She had a friend who I had never even seen before, like not even a picture, and she said that I was going to be in love with that friend if I ever met that friend. She put this on me hard for days, like she was treating me as though I was already guilty of being in love with her friend when I hadn't even met the friend. Eventually, she wanted me to stop going to AA meetings because of a girl at the meetings who gave people hugs including me. These are only a few examples, there are many more. One night I went out with my male friends and my phone died and I came back to my apartment later than I said I would. My ex smacked me in the head. Another time I forgot I was supposed to meet her at a store down the street after I went somewhere and I walked home thinking she was still at my apartment. When she saw me she stomped on my bare feet with her shoes, then she slapped me on another occasion when we were verbally arguing. Then there was all the breaking stuff. She found out my shoes were given to me by an ex and she took scissors and chopped the laces. Another time she broke my flower pot. Another time she broke my $200 headphones. Another time she broke my TV. Another time she broke my laptop. Another time she took a box of my family photos and threw it to the ground. Then, she found out I had a yoga mat from a previous ex, and she tore it in half. She apologized and replaced all of these things. A friend of mine who is a medical doctor and a very respectable guy/family man is a movie fan. He always recommends movies for me and other friends. He recommended an award-winning movie for me to watch, so I suggested to my ex we should watch it one day. Well, in the movie one of the characters is a 45-year-old man dating a teenage girl. It's just a movie. The whole point of the movie is to show that he is predatory. And again, it's a goddamn movie. Well, my ex flipped the hell out. She started to conclude that my doctor friend must be sick in his head to recommend this movie, and that maybe there is something wrong with me where I want to be like that 45-year-old character one day when I am 45. I tried to explain this to my ex but she couldn't see reasonably, and I had to deal with her basically accusing me of wanting to be like the guy in the movie. The relationship was fear-based. When I told my ex that we should have some space, maybe for a week and she could go home, it turned into a crazy event. She picked up a big knife and proceeded to stab holes in my leather couch. But not only was she capable of violence, she knew how to project and turn things around on me. One day I was at the counter cutting food with a knife. I was preparing food for us. While I was doing this my ex started in again about how I'm in love with some other woman. I couldn't take it anymore and I yelled at her. I can't remember what I said but it was normal yelling stuff, like I was reacting. Well, days later she turned it around and said that I was yelling with a knife in my hand and that she was basically scared, but the reality was that I happened to be preparing food when this happened. These are only some examples of the crazy stuff I dealt with from her guys. It was tough. I was trying to break up with her for a long time but I was fear-based. Her sister is 2 years younger than her, also 30s and has had a boyfriend for 7 years. Well, it turns out that the sister is the same way as my ex. When we were all together the four of us had a deep conversation about our similar relationship dynamics. Both sisters admitted that they have jealousy issues when it comes to other women, and that their Korean parents were always together growing up so they don't ever want to be apart from their boyfriends. To the point of codependency, they admitted that they had issues. My ex had admitted her wrongs to me in the past as well. That same week, the sister and the boyfriend were at a coffee shop and the sister thought another girl checked out the boyfriend. He ended up being in trouble with her over this for the rest of the day. The sister had also been violent to the boyfriend to the point that he said he was traumatized. The boyfriend is also a white guy. The sister once slapped the boyfriend in the face and there was some other stuff she had done that they didn't go into detail about. When I was alone with him he vented to me that he has thought about trying to get out of the relationship and that he feels trapped because when he goes to hang out with his friend the sister would block him from leaving. But he felt like there was nothing he could do because he's a man and she's a small woman and he's afraid that he could get in trouble legally if he tried to physically move her out of the way. When his father died he took on a man of the family role to look after his younger sisters. His girlfriend, my ex's sister, didn't like that because she said he was starting to treat his sisters like girlfriends. Totally crazy controlling stuff. So there was a family dynamic there. My ex and her sister's parents had purchased 2 houses for the sister and the boyfriend, so I think he felt financially trapped. My ex's parents wanted to buy her a house and she offered for us to have the house together. Anyway, outside of my ex's abusive ways, there was some good stuff in the relationship. She reconnected me with my day who I hadn't spoken to after a decade due to a falling out, and now he and I are spending time together regularly. she also understood my complicated background and did a lot of other good things. But her craziness was too much for me. I agreed to go to therapy with her and that backfired. She went from apologetic for all she has done to blaming me for a lot of it and saying that me keeping her up all night venting to her for weeks early in our relationship led to her pinching me and that I'm the psychological abuser, but she didn't address the other instances of violence against me. She said that me venting to her all the time about my problems was the same as her putting all this stuff on me about other women. I tried to tell her that the difference was my stuff wasn't about her and her stuff was always a rage against me, but she didn't see the difference. She didn't want me to hang out with one of my male AA friends and play sports together because he was a single father and had a bachelor personality, and she said I would become like him if I spent time around him. I drank very heavily on and off for the final year of the relationship. The relationship lasted less than a year and a half. By the end I was so emotionally drained and terrified of her, and felt like I didn't know how to get her away from me. I ended up gambling most of my $25,000 401k saving away on stocks, in an effort to get some money so that I could have some financial mobility, but I lost it. I started having some bad symptoms from alcoholism again. She said she had a connection for me to get a much higher paying job and she put a resume together for me and tried to set me up with that professional connection, but, at that point I was so burned out and just wanted to get her away from me. At the end I was begging her to get out of my apartment. I felt like my ex had a high-paying job but also wealthy parents. She paid for a lot of things like it was no big deal and paid for us to travel internationally together, but she didn't fully understand what it's like being in my position with much less in terms of financial support bases. Sometimes she did seem to understand. I do miss her sometimes because outside of all of the crazy stuff I described, there was a really good connection there, but unfortunately, the crazy stuff is part of who she is, and it ruined the potential. She had previously dated a doctor who she said punched her and raped her, and she reported him to the police. Then the guy who she dated after that, the guy right before me, who was a lawyer, had cheated on her and another girl, was dating her and another girl at the same time. She said he texted her around the time we were breaking up, and it made her remember a traumatic event she had compartmentalized. That a sexual act he did with her was non-consensual, so she went to the police and reported him for rape as well. So she's reported the last 2 boyfriends before me for rape and filed restraining orders against them. Within 5 months of dating she was bullying me about a plan to start having kids within a year. When I told her I wanted to use protection, condoms, again, she would get really nasty with me and act like I was a bad guy. LOL, I've looked online and her business appears to be going well. I'm actually happy for her and hope that she can resolve her issues.